Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back. Just wanting to give you guys an update on the equinox energies and just some things that I've been observing and things that I've been experiencing as well. And also just wanting to hear back from you guys and see and hear basically how you are all traveling, how you are all managing and coping, what's going on in your lives. Yeah, just a general sort of catch up. I've just been very preoccupied with the current sort of state of events here in the country that I'm in at the moment, which is Australia, as most of you are aware. And of course, we had a an earthquake yesterday, which I know a lot of you heard about. And thank you so much to those of you that sent me messages, emails, or commented on the community section here on the YouTube platform. I really, really appreciate the fact that you guys even thought about me. So just to let you all know, it seemed to be that there are some structural damages that have occurred in certain locations, in certain it could be certain homes and buildings. I'm not entirely sure of those details, but overall, it wasn't a massive disaster. And as I said when I posted the chart for that moment yesterday, what I noticed was that Jupiter was in the fourth house. And as I said in my post, I think that was actually a saving grace. You know, Jupiter is a protector. It acts as a body, a frequency, that offers protection, as a matter of fact. So even Jupiter in your natal chart, wherever it is or wherever it's transiting, it's always a source of protection of some kind. So never forget that. Never forget to tune into that energy of Jupiter. So there's a lot going on. As I said, we had that earthquake yesterday. We've had 3 days of consecutive protesting here in Melbourne, Australia. We had some protests a few days just last weekend as well, which were a separate group of people. It's been incredibly intense here, to say the least. Now, Venus in Scorpio, I feel has, been a very intense journey so far. I'm feeling it personally myself, and there are others that I know in my life that also are experiencing it quite personally. And then I see it also as a collective influence as well. There's a lot of things going on. We just had the full moon in Pisces conjunct Neptune, as we know. The moon then ingressed into Aries, and that was when the moon was in Aries, and I think it was still in a full moon phase. That's when the protests have sort of taken place the last few days. There has been extreme scenes and chaos, and there's been violence, and there's been assaults, and there's been a lot of things going on. It's, if you saw the footage, I don't know if you've got access to see the footage. It is, it's kind of inconceivable what's going on here, because we're seeing military sort of tactics and forces and things of that nature, with with weapons being used and pepper spray and just a whole bunch of things. It's and there's been kids there, there's been mothers, there's women, elderly women. There's been pretty chaotic, intense scenes that have taken place, and it's literally in my neighborhood. So I'm feeling the energy just so strongly, and it's so overwhelming. And regardless of whichever position you take, because sometimes people swing by my channel and they might hear me raise a few comments about the current narrative that's being played out, and they are of an opposing view, and that's okay. You can have an opposite view to me or to anybody else. That's neither here nor there to me. I'm not here to necessarily suggest that my perspectives are the perspectives that you need to follow. But on the other hand, when I'm speaking about these matters, I'm not even speaking about my perspective. I'm speaking about what is actually happening and what I'm witnessing with my own eyes. So it's not a personal opinion, it's just what's actually going on. So where I stand, in with no uncertain terms, is pro-choice, simple. And whatever that choice is for you, that choice is for you. I don't mind. It's none of my business, actually, what you do or what you don't do. But I do stand for pro-choice, and I don't have a problem in sharing that and communicating that and standing in that within my own self. I'm a double Aquarian. I've got very strong Uranus in my chart. I consider myself to be in the individuated state of group of souls as opposed to the consensus reality state. So I'm always going to be pro-choice, fairness, equality, and justice for any situation, any person, or any group of people. And I've always been like that since I was a child. So to have these kinds of events taking place at the moment where people are not allowed to speak their opinion, not allowed to have a choice in what they choose to do with their livelihood, their health, that is of great concern to me. And I don't care if you don't agree with that. I really don't care. Just stay off my channel if that's how you feel. It's really neither here nor there to me. Okay, so now that I got that off my chest, let me just bring up some charts and let's just have a look at some highlights of things that are going on. As I said, this is just a general kind of overview, but I just want to point to some things. So first thing is this, here's the chart for Melbourne when the earthquake took place. And as you can see here, Jupiter's in the 4th house. Saturn is in the 3rd. However, it is actually conjunct the IC, and that's a very important aspect there. Okay, so there's Saturn. It's only a few degrees away. Now Jupiter is much further than Saturn is to the IC. That is, the IC is down here at 12 degrees of Aquarius. And what is actually happening is that, of course, we all know that transiting Saturn and transiting Uranus have been dancing in this square aspect all year. That there's one more hit to go, which is in December. And without question, there's a lot more to see. There's a lot more to happen. There's a lot more systems to crash down. There's a lot more conflict that's going to take place. It's the status quo system, Saturn versus freedom and liberty. It's just how it's going to play out. So in this particular chart with the earthquake, what happened was transiting Saturn was also forming a square to the IC. The IC in the bottom part of the chart, representing Melbourne at that specific time, represents the Earth. The bottom part of the chart, which is called the IC, that's the very foundation that we stand on, whether that's in our home or on the Earth plane herself. That's what the bottom part of the chart represents. So it's no surprise to me at all that transiting Uranus was forming a square to the IC. Okay, Uranus corresponds to earthquakes, all right, sudden eruptions. Okay. Saturn also corresponds to earthquakes from the point of view of structure, sort of collapsing, if you like. And Pluto would also correspond to earthquakes as well. As I said, Jupiter being in the 4th house, I think, was the saving grace. That is that the earthquake wasn't powerful enough to do much more severe damage, right? So we were very, very lucky, very protected by the presence of Jupiter. Okay, so that's it with that chart there. Let me just clear this and bring up. Well, actually, we can just continue with this chart. So I've made some notes here, so let me just go back and have a little look here. So I just want to say one more thing relative to the current state of affairs. The intensification that's taking place, which will continue, is of course largely connected to Pluto and Eris, the square between Pluto and Eris. And so this basically started in January of 2020, okay? There was another hit on the 15th of June 2020. Then we had one in December 2020. So there's been 5 hits, well, there will be 5. The next one was in August, so just last month, okay? And then the final passing over between Pluto and Eris is actually October next month. And so next month is going to be, I think, probably one of the biggest months outside of December, of course. And we know that Eris and Pluto is the concoction, the frequency that's actually erupting through the entire soul of the earth and humanity, and is waking the mass consciousness out of the opium, the sleep state, the slumber that humanity has been in for tens and thousands of years, really. So the fact that there's going to be one more passing over, and that's going to happen because Pluto is going to move direct in October, as is Saturn and as is Jupiter. So we have a very, very big month in October. 3 major planets all changing direction, moving direct. We know that when planets stop to change direction, that's a very powerful hot zone relative to the days that that's actually occurring. And when planets shift direction to move direct, the implication of that is an external expression. Okay, things are going to appear and manifest a lot more on the external plane. So we can expect a lot more intensity, a lot more, we could say, a lot more Saturnian type of things coming through as well, relative to the narrative, which is the desperation to maintain control. Okay, now if you don't see that there's a desperation for maintaining control, then I don't know which land you live in, right? It's so obvious. We can't just remain in this opium state and, you know, deny and have blinkers on and just become, you know, sort of what's the word, normalize the things that are taking place that are not normal at all. They are not normal at all. So we cannot normalize these things and continue to remain in an opium state. We must open our eyes on every spectrum. So October is going to be very, very intense. Okay, Pluto's squaring Eris, final hit. That's going to be massive. Jupiter's going direct, Saturn's going direct, and Pluto's going direct. Okay, in addition to that, what we have is today, relative to it being the 23rd of September here in the Southern Hemisphere, the sun has just ingressed into Libra, actually. So let me just, in fact, bring up the current chart, which is here. So as you can see, the sun has ingressed into Libra. Now, this is leading us into the energies that are going to obviously manifest during the month of October, which will include a new moon in Libra, which is going to be a very, very significant new moon cycle. And I'll explain to you in a minute why that is, but I will be coming back to talk about that in greater depth and detail. Before I talk just briefly about the new moon, Mercury is going retrograde in a few days' time, in about 5 days' time. That is going to be a very significant cycle, of course, because Mercury will be going retrograde at 25 degrees of Libra, which means it'll be forming a square to Pluto. Okay, and that's huge, because that whole Mercury retrograde cycle is encapsulated by the energy of Pluto. And Pluto, of course, is more transformation, rebirth, death, destruction, you know, so on and so forth. We are also in the realm of the solar eclipse energy that's coming up in December. We have one more solar eclipse for 2021 that occurs in December at 12 degrees of Sagittarius. I've actually got the chart here, so where is it? There it is. Okay, so 4th of December, and this is a solar eclipse, a total solar eclipse. So indeed, it's extremely powerful energy. It's in Sagittarius. I will come back and talk about that as well, but I'm just pointing out today the current energies that we are actually already stepping into. It is understood and has been documented over and over again that solar eclipses in particular, the energy of those eclipses can really kick in at least 3 months before the actual date. And we are in that zone right now. And solar eclipses usually are very intense energies that speak to external things that take place. Okay, I will come back to talk about that in more specific detail. So we're in that energy. We've got the Venus retrograde cycle, which is occurring in the sign of Capricorn at the beginning of next year, but that energy has also started to open up for us, if you like. that VSP, Venus star point, which is the Venus retrograde cycle, is very powerful because it's going to be squaring Pluto. Okay, so Pluto's, you know, a very significant player in a lot of things that are going on with Mercury's retrograde cycle, with Venus's retrograde cycle, but basically Pluto forming a square to the Venus and the Mercury. So we can see that there's a lot of intense energies coming up. We have the, as I said, the last aspect between Saturn and Uranus, the last square. That's going to be explosive without a doubt. What else? Let me see. And I think Venus in Scorpio is taking us through quite an intense journey ourselves, regardless of what's going on in our personal life and so forth. You know, Venus always takes us into an incredibly deep and intense journey. And especially in the face of, or in the background of, or in the front of, you know, the current state of affairs. Venus is a body that connects, right? So she's a connector, just like the moon is. And we may, and I have spoken about Venus in Scorpio. I've done a whole video on that, so please watch that if you haven't, if you're interested in hearing more. But I would just like to point out that, I guess, you know, one of the things with Venus in Scorpio is, because Scorpio is the archetype that corresponds to, obviously, death, rebirth, transformation, things coming to an end, and new things being born. And Venus is also a planet outside of being the archetype that draws us into love and how we share and receive love and so on and so forth, and our values, self-worth, etc., money issues, things like that, or money matters. Venus is also our circle of friends, you know. It is our social life. So I dare say there are a lot of people going through a pretty intense transformative process, even from the point of view of their social life, and people that you know, we may have been cutting off from certain social circles or certain friendships, and you know, that's largely based to the current narrative, of course, and that's very sad to see in a lot of ways. But on the other hand, you know, it's really a question of deciding, you know, what you want to include into your life, what you want to connect to, who you want to connect to, and not doing that, of course, with the with some sort of malice intent, but rather with blessing the earth and blessing every single soul on the earth, because Venus is blessings as well as Jupiter. And so just sending love and blessings to people, but you may just have to find what and who remains relative to your values, because we all have our own personal values and morals and ethics in all situations, right? So I think there's a lot of that going on too. Where are we? So let me just, where was I? What was this chart? Okay, so here's the new moon chart. Now, I will come back to talk about this in greater depth, as I said. What I want to point out, though, is that you can see here that Mars is actually exactly conjunct the new moon. Okay, there's Mars at 13, there's the moon at 13, and there's the sun at 13. Now, when you see planetary aspects, you know, planetary energies coming together all at the same degree, it's very important to always pay attention to that. You know, what does it mean exactly? Well, it depends on, you know, what you're looking at. Is it a new moon? Is it 2 planets or 3 planets together on the same degree? And I mean natally in your birth chart, and also just a transit chart. Okay, it's always important to pay attention if there's a particular sort of sequence or theme represented by, you know, a particular degree is being emphasized multiple times. That's usually quite significant. In this case, it's even more significant because there's this concept of what's called critical degrees in the zodiac. Okay, there's quite a few degrees that are considered to be critical degrees in the mutable, cardinal, and fixed signs of the zodiac. Now, Libra is a cardinal sign, and 13 degrees is a critical degree. Okay, literally a critical degree. This is showing us that there's a new moon cycle in the sign of Libra with Mars being in its detriment, of course, because its rulership placement is Aries, the opposite sign to Libra. So Mars does struggle in Libra, okay, but nevertheless, it's there. It's on a critical degree with the new moon. I will come back to talk about that in greater depth. I just wanted to flag that from now because it's not too far away. So for those of you that are, pretty in tune and attuned to new moons and full moons and just basic astrology, or even a little bit more advanced, whatever it is, some people, plan and consider and reflect and contemplate, well and truly before the new moon, for instance, or before the full moon. So I'm just kind of flagging this as something to really consider. The Sabian symbol is quite interesting for this new moon. We look to the 14th degree, and the 14th degree, it wasn't a Sabian symbol that really stood out to me in a very significant way, but I suppose in retrospect we'll see why that Sabian symbol was quite important. The thing that I'm really interested in with this, though, is the fact that it's on the 13th degree, which is a critical degree. That's huge, 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 huge. Okay, what else is going on? That's basically it. And we will have, as you can see here, Venus is at virtually 29 degrees of Scorpio. So a couple of days after that, Venus will move into Sagittarius. I'll come back to talk about that. The direct movement of Saturn is on the 11th of October. Pluto goes direct on the 7th of October, and Jupiter goes direct on the 18th of October. Somewhere around there, I think when Jupiter goes direct, Mercury also goes direct. Let's have a look, actually. Just recall something about that. Let's see. Let's go to the... Is Mercury? Yeah, so Mercury is stationary direct on the 18th of October, which is the same day that Jupiter goes direct. That's also obviously very significant. I will discuss that when I talk about Mercury's retrograde cycle, though. So I've got a lot to come back and kind of expand on, and I'll do that to my best capability. The last few days, I haven't really been able to even focus on my work. It's just been incredibly intense here in Melbourne. I'm just feeling a lot of concern, a lot of love, and a lot of sadness for the whole world, really. But seeing what I've seen on the streets just down the road from my house, I saw a 70-something-year-old woman get slammed to the ground by authorities, and then while she's slammed to the ground, sprayed in the eyes with pepper spray, a helpless woman, in her 70s. She was just walking in amongst a protest, but nevertheless, she was just walking. She was not a threat to anything or anyone. So there's a lot of terrible things that have been going on here. On the other hand, I've got to be honest. I've actually heard a couple of members in the police force, and this has been recorded, so it's not, so I'm not pulling it out of some cloud. This is literal footage that's been recorded. I've actually heard officers literally say to protesters, look, we don't want to be doing what we're doing. We've had enough of this as well. My wife has lost her job because she doesn't want to insert that liquid into her arm. So there every single human being, regardless of their role, their community, their identification and so forth, everyone is experiencing the challenges of the current narrative, and it is taking everything within us to really remain centered and strong and focused and truthful and authentic. I mean, it's exhausting. This has been going on for 2 years pretty much, and it's just amplifying. The last couple of months is just amplified to the absolute hilt, and it's just going to keep amplifying, as a matter of fact, because that's just the way this thing is unfolding. But I in my heart of heart, and in the heart of my soul, I really do feel and believe that the truth and the light will be victorious. I truly believe that. I truly believe that. And it doesn't matter which position you've taken. I think that that's going to happen, but it's not going to happen tomorrow, and it's not going to happen next month. It's going to take some time. So we are all challenged. We are all challenged in so many different ways. And we, you know, this, if you've ever had to get in touch with the inner warrior, you know, this is the time. You know, this is the time to be showing true courage. And I'm not talking about anything in particular when I say that, other than just really being very courageous at times where an apparent reality or narrative is extremely challenging. You know, for every single soul is experiencing something very challenging about this. So don't lose faith, you know, and don't give up. And yeah, just you know, hook with your tribe, you know, connect with people that can offer you support and comfort, who are understanding as well. There's no point getting into conflict and arguments with people who might be standing in a different position. That's just a waste of time and energy. It's toxic. It doesn't uplift you. It actually just drains you. So just stay in the heart center of what feels right for you. That's a really important message throughout this whole situation. However it continues to unfold, that's going to be a very important thing to always constantly feed back to yourself and remember. You know, it's a lonelier path when you step outside of the consensus reality, because you're not part of a particular narrative that's, you know, largely accepted. You know, whether that's right or wrong, whether that's good or bad, doesn't really matter. But the point is that when you stand outside the consensus, you do take a bigger risk of being excluded or demonized or vilified or whatever it is. And, you know, that's just what you have to deal with, you know, when you choose to walk that path. You know, that's, I mean, I've felt like that my entire life, really. That's nothing new to me, to be quite honest. So this is just an intensified version of it, of course. But I personally feel that by being true to our heart and being authentic, you know, and just understanding that everyone's at a different position, and that's okay. But I think it's important to be able to sleep at night with a clear conscience. Sleep at night with a clear conscience, knowing that you are being true and authentic and honest. You know, I think that's just an important thing to. It's authentic. You know, it's integral. So yeah, just some things to kind of think about. Okay, well, look, I'll be back very soon with much more, a lot more in-depth kind of overviews on the things I've touched on today. But, you know, today's the 23rd of September. We've only got one more week left. It is the equinox right now, literally. So, you know, equal day, equal night. The light and the dark, as it were, are on some kind of platform, if you like, where there's this... I feel like we can literally see, actually, you know, we can see both. Okay. And it's not about demonizing anything or making anything bad, but really about becoming more clear in what you wish to choose. And how is your evolutionary process going through all of this? You know, has it stimulated more things for you to be more clear and to open yourself up more, to understand more? You know, what's happening to you through this process? We are all going through our own personal journey with this, and again, there's no right or wrong, but you know, I mean, evolution has many different components to it, clearly, and there's many different levels and processes and experiences. But fundamentally, evolution, in my opinion at least, has got to do with becoming more conscious. When we become more conscious, we don't project stuff onto anything or anyone, really. We just observe and are aware. So you know, how aware are we at the moment? It's one thing to notice what's going on and to be observing it, and it's another thing to be demonizing it, or whatever the case may be. There's clearly some fractured, you know, things going on in the world, right? That's abundantly clear. There's some clear injustices that are going on. That's also abundantly clear. But again, it's really about our own personal authenticity and integrity and honesty with ourselves and our own journey, you know. And so I'll leave it there. Okay, I'll be back soon. Sending you all so much love, and I hope you are, you know, doing well and staying strong, and, you know, just connect with people who can basically be there with you, you know, and you can be there with them. It's so important, so important. Spread the love from the heart. Just spread the love. Those that, you know, the the opposing sort of forces, if you like, they need more love than anybody else. Believe it or not, they actually do. Just send the love, send the love, send the love. See you soon. Bye.